In that same breath, your school activities accounts, I know we talk about majority of your budget is people, obviously. If you add up the 3.256 million that has been passed through the operations account as of the end of June 30th, 2023, that makes up 3.85% of your total budget. Can you answer why this is not in your regular budget and why that there's no budgets within these accounts? I mean, that's 3.85% of your overall budget for the year. I think those accounts being budgeted, not only in your budget, but budgeted at the individual schools to where the elected officials at the Board of Ed could make decisions on this amount of money. I mean, with a fund balance of $1.567 million this year, it seems like operationally the schools have quite a bit of money sitting in accounts that could be used for educational materials as well as other classroom expenses. I wanted to read real quick a postcard that I received to see if this may give a little clarification to my question. Please fully fund the educational budget. In the past month, I spent $212 of my personal money for instructional materials for ELS students. Okay, that's a postcard that was received from a teacher to myself. In that same, I looked at Pocomoke High School, where that came from, and the current balance in that account is, I believe, $122,000. Can you explain to me why we have teachers using their own money when we have $100,000+ in that account? Why are teachers using their own money to fund education materials? I just need clarification for that. And is this a per principal decision, or is this a county-wide decision?
Certainly, each school principal is in charge of the finances of their building. So they make the decisions on what is allocated to each teacher for instructional supplies and those kinds of things. And also in that balance, it's not just money for materials of instruction. There's other things in there. There's money for the band. There's money for football. There's money for things that are set aside and restricted for certain purposes. So they might not be available for instructional supplies.
Okay, that leads into my second question then. How much money is sent to each individual school for these operational accounts, and where is it documented within your budget?
Mm-hmm. It's under textbooks and classroom supplies. Materials of instruction goes to the schools. It's allocated based on the enrollment at the school and based on the type of programs that they have. Each school receives instructional allotment every year. Last year, because MOE, we did reduce that by 50%. So about $900,000 goes to the 14 schools for materials of instruction and other funds.
Okay, so where would a Bose speaker purchased by a principal for personal use in their office, where would that fit into the restriction part of that?
I don't know anything about that.
Have you reviewed these transactions within the QuickBooks accounts? I mean, at 3.85% of your budget, I truly think that someone should be looking over this account, and the only spot this account is listed is in the audit. So as we talk about 90% is people, 3.85 above that is not people, just in these accounts alone. I don't understand why these accounts are not budgeted and why the elected Board of Education is not aware of these particular transactions. I mean, how are we monitoring this? Are we allowing a per principal basis to how this money is allocated? It seems there's no rhyme or reason to how these purchases are done.
Well, we do have, the auditors do go out once a year and visit the school to review transactions. And also a few years ago, my office started sending out Ms. Searing, my finance manager, to do at least 4 mini audits of the different schools each year. They could review the transactions to make sure proper signatures were for checks and reimbursements and invoices were documented. So all those things have happened. She doesn't visit every school every single year. We just don't have time. But she does go out to 4 schools each year, and auditors do review those transactions when they go in.
Well, speaking with the auditor myself, actually, he said they do not audit individual transactions, so I'm sorry, I apologize. I think that's incorrect. The individual auditors only monitor that the accounts are present. They don't monitor individual transactions. That would be the 6-year audit that was forgone by the commissioners before I was here. It's just my question is, it just really hurts my heart, especially as my wife's a teacher, to get postcards of these teachers that are struggling for increased salaries and struggling to get a living wage, that we're allowing them to purchase stuff out of their own accounts. I know for a fact that in these accounts, there is multiple purchases within the QuickBooks accounts that have no restriction to them whatsoever. I just would like to see an answer of when we tell our teachers that we don't have money to support their classrooms and make them use their own money. I'd like to see a system of protocol in place to say that we don't have any money. And from what I see so far, I just don't. I don't see that being the case.
Well, I wish that teacher had let someone know, like me, know that was happening, because I certainly would have looked into it and we could address it.
Sir, with all due respect, I've had hundreds of teachers come to me with the same exact thing. So I get it, it's not one principal, it's countywide, and I just don't think it's fair to our educators as they're struggling to make a living wage, and we're trying to get them higher incomes, that we have $3.5 million of basically unrestricted money within these schools that's being allocated by one individual, being the principal, with no oversight of the electeds at all, no oversight of this board. It just seems, it's hard to swallow, as 90% of our money is supposedly, we have no control out of it, it's for the people. And then yet 3.85% of that is in an unrestricted. Each principal has basically their own reign to do whatever they want to do with that money. I mean, in the future, are we looking to look over this money, or are we just going to look at this $3.5 million, just be like, oh, well, let's see what happens with it as our teachers are spending their own money? I would just like to get some kind of answer of how we're going to rein this in.
Well, I will just add one thing, and this has happened forever. Teachers are allocated a certain amount of money for their classroom, and sometimes teachers choose to go above and beyond and make their room, especially for the kids, and they should. And they choose to spend money out of their own pocket, not because someone told them to, but they didn't even ask for the money. They just decided to go out and buy those things on their own. I'm not saying that's the case here, but typically teachers do want to have those bulletin boards that look great for their students, okay? And they may go out and they may spend more than what they're allotted from their school. I'm not saying that's the case here, Mr. Fiori, I'm not.
Okay. I mean, I love our teachers, and they love their students. As my wife being a teacher, she absolutely loves her students, and she's going to spend that extra money. But what I'm talking about is requested money that they need as a necessity for their classrooms. And we have $3.5 million in money that's sitting in there between all our schools.
Well, it's not sitting there. It's a little over $1 million that is sitting there at year end.
Well, we're not seeing the revenues coming in from that accounts either.
Can I just speak to the line item?
Can you identify yourself, please?
I'm Teresa Searing. I'm the finance manager. I work in Mr. Tolbert's office, and I go out and do the audits. So those numbers, they're not just made up of things that are available for teachers to buy things for their classrooms. Those numbers are made up of, at the high school level, you've got class dues for all 4 classes. They pay class dues, and those dues are specifically for that class. So when that class graduates, our bookkeeper holds that money until they give them 5 years to create their, like your class, you probably have a class reunion. So we're required to hold that money. The band, they have fundraisers. It includes fundraiser money. It includes field trip money. It includes, there's lots of book club or book fair money. So those numbers that you're seeing in there from the total amount of money that the school has for itself is not just for materials of instruction or it's for the different clubs, it's for the different sports, like the baseball team raises money for themselves, the soccer team raises money for themselves. So all of that money is managed at the school level by the bookkeeper, and it's not specific to MOI or buying materials of instruction.
With all due respect, I've viewed some of these QuickBook accounts, and fortunately, some of your employees were gracious enough to allow me as a county commissioner and the funding source to view these. And by viewing these, do you have escrow accounts for these individual band sports? Do you have escrow accounts within within your QuickBooks accounts?
There are sub-accounts that name each. There's band transportation. There's, having been a bookkeeper at Snow High School, I'm just going on that, and I see I do the audits, so we have someone in our office that monitors all the QuickBook accounts. And when I go out and do an audit, she prints me a report of all their transactions, and I go out and I do have the bookkeepers pull individual transactions, checks that are written that I do test their books, and there are sub-accounts for each one of these where expenses and revenues go in and out for the baseball team or the class of 2024 or whatever it happens to be.
So when you shift these, the monies over at the beginning of the year?
We don't shift the monies over. Their materials of instruction stay in our account. And they request, like if they pay for materials, they either do a purchase order for their materials of instruction, and we code it to the materials of instruction stays at the board.
But you just said that there's materials instructions in those accounts, and you just stated they stay at the board.
The materials of instruction stays at the board. And they request the money, or they pay for it out of what's called a clearing account, and do a school reimbursement request and request to be reimbursed. And we review all of that. They have a general account. I suppose if the principal, that's managed by the principal. So my point is that the money, the balance in their checking account is not just like their general fund. It's not money that we've shipped to them. We keep that materials of instruction money at the board, and they do a school reimbursement request, or they do a purchase order so that it is approved by the assistant superintendents prior to being paid. So the small numbers, there's a possibility that the principal said, we don't have it in our budget. So they would only be able to pay for that kind of stuff out of a general, or they would have to pay for it and request it out of their materials of instruction from the Board of Ed.
So we have $3.5 million in pass-through in these accounts, and we have no oversight except from a bookkeeper and a principal to school. I just want to get that correct. There's no oversight there, but except for that, correct?
Well, we do, as Ms. Sheeran said, we have the school bookkeeper, we have the principal, we have a secretary in my office that oversees it, we have Ms. Sheeran that does audits, at least for a year of the schools. We have the independent auditors that come in and do review. They may not review every transaction, but they do go in and review the schools. So
Mr. Talbot, again, where is that auditor? Where is that auditor that's coming in there once a year and auditing these? That's not true. Explain to me. I'll be happy to say, if that auditor, I would love to talk to him and see what they find. But, sir, I spoke to the auditor, and the auditor simply says that the accounts are there. That's all he does in a yearly basis. That's it. I spoke to him myself. So I'm trying to figure out why at 3.85% this is not included in the regular budget. That's all I'm
Well,
asking.
Mr. Taylor just sent out a letter to the school principals based on the audit and what they saw when they visited their schools.
No, whose audit was that? I'm sorry.
UHY.
Individual school, I've got it on my desk. I just got the report from the auditor, so I don't know what auditor you spoke to, but I've got one, unless somebody's sent me some bogus letters and also with some findings that we need to look into, or recommendations, not findings. So, and I can tell you for 17 years, Mr. Fiori, as principal of Stephen Decatur High School, that auditor sat with my bookkeeper for a solid day in that room going over the individual school books. Now, I'm confused that it's not happening now, and I need to look into it because I can't sit here and tell you that I know for sure it is. But I know and I wish I'd brought those letters. They were right on my budget book. I should have brought them, of all the findings of individual, or all the recommendations of individual schools. As a matter of fact, I said to Vince in a meeting yesterday, I want to go over these with you that I got from UHY when we have a chance. So I don't know what auditor you talked to, and I'll be glad to show you the letter I have.
Okay, no, that's great. I appreciate that.